We opened up the entire location in 2017 for $61,000. So very little investment. So let's say, 80 grand. I was able to open up the doors. After 6 months, I think we paid back the 80,000. We kicked open doors.
Welcome to The Bottom Line, the podcast that brings you real stories behind real restaurants. In each episode, we explore the decisions, systems, and stories behind the most successful restaurants out there in the market. No fluff, no hype. Just real operators, real challenges, and real advice from people who know how to get results. Let's get to the bottom line.
Everyone, thank you very much for joining me today at the Bottom Line podcast, the real stories behind restaurants. Joining me today is Joe Fontana from Coop restaurant group. They are super successful. 10 restaurants. They specialize in fried chicken. My favorite food by far. They are in Chicago area. Great reviews, great food, great everything. And they are one of the brands that I know they will reach to high double digits, if not 3 digits. And they deserve it. Welcome today, and thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you for having me. This is great. Hopefully we can share some nuggets of knowledge and wisdom here.
I love it. Nuggets of knowledge. I love it. Joe, you started Coop in 2017. Could you please talk to us about how you started, about the recipes, and how you come to today 10 locations?
Yeah, 100%. So my name's Joe. I'm in Chicago here, and we have our brand Coop. And back in probably 2015, I was really, tired of my corporate job. I wasn't making a lot of money. We had our first kid. So my wife, pregnant, we bought our first house, and I just felt the financial burden of our family on my shoulders. And I thought, I have to do something. And I was living in California at the time, and I saw all these mansions on top of these mountains, these single houses up there. And I said, what do they do for a living, that they got to having a mansion on top of a mountain? And really I found out a lot of them were business owners that had sold their companies. So I was like, okay, so I got to start a business and I got to sell it one day. That was my thought. And then I did some soul searching and just figured out that I really love food. I came up working in hospitality and service, my whole life. So I loved it. I already knew I loved it. And so it just, started grinding. I started working in prep kitchens. I read over 50 books. Listen, this is podcasts that just come out a few years prior. Mm-hmm. So I had been listening to podcasts over and over and over again. Every restaurant podcast I could listen to, I listened to them. I would hunt down restaurateurs. I would ask them, but can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can I buy you a beer? Can I pick your brain about how to get started? This and that. So it was really just like learning for years. And then I put together a business plan. And started, pitching people about how I can raise the money, because I didn't have any money. I mean, I was paycheck to paycheck. Having our first house, my wife cashed out her K early so we could even put the deposit down. So we had no money, so I was doing this from a place of I need help. One thing led to another, and I ended up signing a lease for a second generation restaurant in Chicago. So that's where I grew up, and it was kind of a tough thing, but I had to ask my wife, hey, would you want to move across country, move back to Chicago and start this restaurant? We had no plans of leaving Southern California, but she was very supportive, and a lot of credit to her. So we packed up our house, sold it.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, I know. Moved across country, and here we are, beautiful 75-degree every day, no winters, wine country of Southern California. We lived in a really beautiful place. But the concept, I knew when I was writing the business plan that it was a scalable concept. So I told my wife, I said, well, I'm not just moving back to Chicago to have a job. I'm going to actually scale a business. And so that was a really distinctive, differentiator. I wasn't just going to open up one restaurant and, be the guy who's there 7 days a week in the dining room. Although I love that work, it's just that was not the plan,
I do not. Yeah. I can tell you, I do not.
It's great. I mean, it takes a certain person. I'm a front of the house guy, so I love being in the front of the house. I love talking to customers. I love high-fiving people, kissing babies. It's not for everybody.
It's about the fire dress. And if you are stuck at like one restaurant, usually it's not a distinguished brands and all that. There isn't so much money to be had. There isn't so much money to hire the best and the brightest. And thus the people don't really care too much. You know, the employees, if you try to like ramp up the tightness of the organization, they are like, I quit, you know, screw you, I quit, you know, they go next door and they start over. I will work like 8 days a week if that was possible, but with the right people who care about the business, you know, and that comes with brand success, that brings in money. Money then turns into basically hiring the best and the brightest. Best and the brightest are happy to be there because it's the brand up, just like your brand, right? People are excited because they see a future for themselves. When they say, I work in Friday Coop, their friends are like, man, you are so lucky to work there. I know they are super successful.
100%. You're right. Well, with one restaurant, there's a ceiling really fast, and it could be okay, but I think like, you know, if you start to scale, you know, it creates more opportunity for everybody. And so when our first restaurant, we found a second generation restaurant. That was a really key part. And I'm still finding, I'm in our new restaurant. We're about to open in about 5 weeks. And this was a former, restaurant that we took over. So I think that is a huge, thing to take away. You don't have to build out the bathrooms. You don't have to put in HVAC units, ductwork, you know, the walk-in coolers. I mean, everything is so expensive to build from scratch. And so, that was a key thing. So we found the second generation restaurant, and it was a restaurant, over the counter, fast casual place that had opened, and they closed within 9 months. And they did about a $350,000 remodel on this place. So it worked out really good that we were able to capitalize on, like, you know, their investment. And all I really had to do was paint the place. And we opened up the entire location in 2017 for $61,000. Very little investment. I did a lease for the equipment, so you can maybe tack on another, you know, 17,000, I think was the lease for that equipment. So let's say, you know, 80 grand. And then I was able to, you know, open up the doors. After 6 months, I think we paid back the 80,000. And then I used cash flow over the next like year to keep improving the restaurant. And, you know,
how soon were you able to be in the black, in the cash flow positive?
It was about 6 or 7 months after we opened up that we were cash flow positive. But it started out again with the second generation restaurant, and then, you know, there's a book called The Lean Startup, and it's about software, but it's like, you know, come up with the 1.0 version, then, you know, get customer feedback, then come out with version 1.1. Then come out, you know, get more feedback, come out with version 1.2, you know, you get the point. But that was kind of what we did. I mean, we opened up with no sign on the building. We had, you know, I painted the place. We used the tables and chairs that were there, even though they were bright orange and our colors are red, you know, so it was like completely off brand. But we just started out with that 1.0 version, and then we had people come in and we got feedback and we improved and we got better. And then one day I bought new chairs, you know, now I got red chairs. So now it's like on brand, you know, and, you know, then we got enough money to put the sign up. And so we definitely started out lean. I recommend that for everybody, especially when you're creating a brand. You know, you don't know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
So it's
or
like,
it's going to go here or here.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to start very, very little, and then you just build upon that. And that's what we did.
So what I learned from you is you read 50 books. You talked to anyone who would listen for the restaurateurs, learned about how to make this happen. You designed the concept, did the business plan, found investor or investors. This is basically like, you know, the Starbucks fund, I forgot his name, like
Howard Schultz.
Yeah. I mean, very similar thing. This is like a lot of people, they don't do these things. They don't do their homework. You did the hard work, both before you start, after you start. And I'm sure like when you remember the moment you basically put those like red chairs in that location. Maybe when you open the 20th location, you won't have the same excitement as you would have from those like red chairs, that the feeling, that the accomplishment. I can't even imagine, after so many years of thinking about conceptualizing, trying to put it together, opening that restaurant in only 6 months, making it cash flow positive, buying those chairs and starting to, make it your own, that location your own in terms of like customizing it and all that. Amazing entrepreneurship story.
Well, I have a nugget here and how that actually happened too was, we opened up and we had no customers, so not only do we have no money, no sign, no anything. I mean, literally it was bleak. And, when no one hears about you or knows about you, it's hard to get people in the door, right? And so I hired a publicist about 3 months into our restaurant. And that was like a pretty big leap of faith, I had studied a lot of New York restaurateurs. And in New York City, I kept hearing restaurateurs talk about how they needed to hire a publicist. And I thought, why would you hire I thought that was for like celebrities, what do you need a publicist for?
Movie.
But then I learned, that in New York City, the rent is so high and the competition is so high that you have to stand out. And so being in New York, they can go on the Today Show. They can go on all these national programs and get the recognition. So when the tourists come, they come see them. And it's like almost like a necessity to hire a publicist if you're a restaurateur in New York City. So I had just learned like, okay, like that's something we have to do. And as soon as the publicist came on, we got on TV. We went on, did a live segment on ABC called Windy City Live. And as soon as that went on, I mean, the phone started ringing. And then we got the attention of a famous food critic in Chicago named Steve Dolinsky. He's got a Hungry Hound segment. This guy is a 13 times James Beard-winning journalist. So, pretty big character. We got him to come and do a special on us. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. After that aired, they played it twice over a weekend. We had to hire like 25 people, like overnight. I mean, it was
Amazing.
like lines around the door. We kept selling out after that. But this is how crazy it is. I had a customer walk in and I'm just chatting with them. How'd you hear about us? He goes, oh, I saw you on TV. I go, oh, great. Where do you live at? He goes, I live right here in Oak Lawn, right down the street. I go, oh, where in Oak Lawn? He goes, I live on Tully Avenue, which we're on the corner of Tully and 95th. 95th Street being like the main drag, like 40,000 cars. Tully is like a very side street. I found out this guy lives 5 houses down from the restaurant. 5 houses down. He never heard of us before. And I asked him, I said, do you drive down 95th Street to get home,
Yeah,
He goes, yeah, every day. He goes, every day. Because you'd have to get to the highway. Never saw it. But then he sees us on TV. So that's how crazy you can literally be like, have someone drive by your restaurant 100 times a day. They will not notice you. So you have to figure out different ways to market and get people to notice you. And this guy found us on TV out of anything, and he lives
5 houses down.
5 houses down. So I just think that was a game changer. If you're in a market where you can hire a publicist, and you don't have to, we think of a publicist as like a year-round thing, like it's a marathon. However, you can do stints of publicists.
Pay for play kind of thing.
Yeah. Or like, hey, I want to do this next 3 months. We got these events coming up. I want to do it. So then you're not having to spend so much. You do it for 3 months. You pause for 6 months. Maybe you do it again for another 3 months. Try different publicists to see who can, get you written about, get you, on TV, that kind of thing. But it's a game changer, and I highly recommend it to anybody who owns a business.
By the way, I feel like a horror movie villain right now with this lighting. I don't know if you see the same thing, but
you're a little dark, yeah, but that's okay. I mean, I'm in like a really bright lit restaurant, so if I have like a lot of brightness on here, that's the reason for me.
From those 50 books and from all those like meetings with the restaurateurs, what are a few of the things that today you think were super helpful? And what are some of the things that you think like the guy wrote the book, sold 1 million copies, but it's basically bullshit?
Well, I think the E-Myth is a book that, is like almost a no-brainer. And that one's from the 80s. But basically the E-Myth is essentially like you need to figure out how to work on your business and not in your business.
I write about that every day.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and now I feel like it's almost like common sense in a way for owning a business. He uses a pie company as an example in that book. And this lady, the book starts off, it's Christmas. She's, crying her eyes out. It's 3 a.m. She's, baking pies all night long, but yet her office has bills stacking up, and just the business is making money, but it's failing because she's stuck making pies and she's not working on the business. So that was a big one, is like, hey, you got to get to the point where you can, work on the business, not in it. It took me about 2 years to get to that point too. So it's not like you can't open a business and be like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I was working 7 days a week, 10 a.m. till midnight, for almost 2 years before I was able to say, okay, now we have enough cash to hire some extra people. We call it the support team. And that allowed me to kind of, work more on the business, not in it. And it was hard. I mean, literally, like, I go to restaurants still to this day. I want to grab a rag and start cleaning and helping customers and jumping on the line. I've had to tie my hands behind my back when I walk in the restaurant, and I tell myself, you can't touch anything. If there's a problem that you see, go get the manager, tell the manager, hey, the light's not on over here. Hey, that table needs to be, go talk to those customers over there. Whatever it is, I don't do the work. It's hard. It's a really mentally, I want to do it. I'm a hard worker. I want to go out there and grind, but it's just at some point you can't do it. So that was a big one. There's a book called Profit First that I got a hold of that was a game changer. And basically the Profit First, it's not good at scale. This is for definitely small businesses. If you have one restaurant, I would say up to 5 restaurants, but you have to be careful with this. But basically, I started a bunch of bank accounts for every restaurant. So one restaurant would have maybe 10 bank accounts. And each one of those bank accounts, I would allocate money. I had an income account where the money came in. And then I would have an operating account that all the expenses came out of. But then I would have a rent account, sales tax account. I'd have a drip account. I would have a end of year tax account. Trying to think.
How did you manage
So, okay, so it's basically like an allocation system. So let's just use a round number of $10,000. So if I know I'm getting $10,000 in cash in, I'm taking, 10% of that and I'm putting it towards the sales tax. I'm taking, 20% and I'm putting it, or maybe, 5% and I'm putting it towards the rent account. I'm taking 20% and I'm putting it in my drip account. And so I'm like, it's basically
allocating
the funds into different, buckets. Because I always found when any money goes into your operating account, it ends up going away at some point, and it was hard for me without a cash flow statement to know how much money we actually had.
I see.
And so that's how I did it. It's not, like I said, at scale, it doesn't work. I kind of shot the business in the foot now, how, we've had to rewind that a little bit. But the great part about that is that we always had money. When we went to open up our second location, like, I had cash. When we wanted to put in a patio, I had cash. When we had to update a new piece of equipment, I had the money because I always allocated and I knew I was just storing away. And maybe the $10,000 income day that came in, maybe one day we had a great week and it was $15,000. Okay, great. I'm going to take some of that money and now I'm going to put it, more into this account, more into the drip account. And we've been doing that literally now for 7 years for the most part, where we are very good at saving cash. And then when we need money, we've got it. So that was another book. And then the last book I want to mention that I think is really helpful is a book called Finish Big. And that one I was very lucky to get a hold of. And basically the thought of that book is that there's, no matter what, you are going to exit your business. I don't care who you are on the planet, you will exit your company at some time. And it's either in 4 ways. It's either you're going to pass the business down to somebody, you're going to sell the business, they're going to carry you out in a stretcher, or you are going to close the business. So no matter what, you are going to exit your business. If you want to work in it till you're 100 years old, that's still, you're exiting because you're going to pass away and it's going to go, you're going to exit. So the idea was that, okay, if you know for 100% certainty that you're going to exit your business one day, you might as well start planning that right now. And if you can plan it now, the better off you're going to be when that time comes. So I actually have started planning the exit of our business before we even opened our doors.
Yeah.
Since day one.
And I'm sure like the manifestation of this, the first manifestation of this is the lease contract, the assignment clause. That's the first manifestation of the, that's super true. That's super true.
100%, literally. Cause like, you always gotta hope for the best, plan for the worst. But I think in a way, if you're setting your business up to exit at some point, you're benefiting. Even if you never do, if you would say, I love my job. I love our company. I'm going to work here until the day I die. That's fine. That's a great plan. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, just plan on it. And if you plan on it better, you will be in a better position knowing that you're gearing that up for that.
If you don't have a system, then you become the system. Some restaurant owners say, I can't build systems. My team won't implement them. But here is the hard truth. If you don't have a system, you become the system. Every fire drill, this should be every shift, every inventory run. You are in the middle, build systems, train your people, create freedom, not just survival. It's not about being corporate. It's about building something that lasts.
And also too, I think, and I love that. And you are 100% right. It is not like, I don't want restaurant owners or business owners to feel like you have to have all these systems figured out tomorrow. It's like we're 8 years into the business. I have 200 employees now, 10 restaurants operating. And it's like, we're still figuring out those systems, and like things change too, HR policies, different things change, the company grows. So I think as that happens, you're constantly working on systems. It is a always evolving thing. But yeah, you're totally right. Have systems, have a lot of them in place. SOPs are, our new best friend.
And Joe, I think what you said is it's super important. Like you started this like years before by reading and learning about it. I think like we live in the golden age of resource availability. Like knowledge is available. We have these podcasts. Everybody's like talking. People are posting stuff every day, articles, books, like even like, like unpaid way. Like you don't even have to buy a book, the writer is doing a podcast, right? That you can listen to. You don't even have to like to read. Like it's almost like the next step is people will be pouring down the knowledge down people's, brains directly, or injecting down people's brains directly, or you will put a chip and download the information. So what I'm saying is, like, my gripe is with people who, like, have no understanding of, like, what's theoretical, actual variance, and they think they have the high horse and they have figured it out. When they don't measure it, they don't even know what it is. They don't measure it. And I asked, like, how do you know that that our operation is super tight? Okay, great. Like, how do you know? When did you last do your recipe costing? Oh, like a year ago. Okay. Like the entire world has changed since last year, prices have changed. You probably introduced like 10 specials since that time. Your weighted table, people's taste might even have changed. Like how people consume, your mix between off-premise versus in-premise might even change. All of these factors will change your weighted average food cost. And, let alone that's your theoretical cost. And restaurants, I think, suffer mostly not on the theoretical side. They suffer wholly on the theoretical, but on the actual side. Because for actual, you need to have a good accounting team with good financial controls, which, like, what percent of, $300 a month to bookkeeping isn't gonna get you actuals. Let me put it that way.
And you're like nailing it on the head there, because knowledge is great and knowledge is a lot of it. However, action, I think, speaks more. Like I could write you down the Bible to fry the coop. Everything, recipes, I can give you everything, the playouts, you name it. That is only about 5% of it. I think operations is really everything. And you're right. There's so much available now. There's so many softwares available too.
Margin Edge, for example, I did a podcast with them, Craftable, Marketman, R365, Restaurant 365 operating system.
100%. Yeah. So utilize those and, you should know your data, your everything up in real time, easier said than done. Right. But there's a way to get there nowadays. And, Yeah, we always say it. We say like operations create sales. And that's like a big one for us. It's like operations.
Yeah. And like, here is the other deal. Before I start that point, stock counts. Like, how many restaurants do a decent stock count at a relatively regular basis? Like stock counts, because your cost of goods sold, the second largest line item in the P&L is cost of goods sold. And how do you know what is your cost of goods sold? I mean, the formula is, right, beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory equals the cost of goods sold. So 2 components out of the 3 is the stock counts.
Yeah, totally.
And like, what is a stock count changes from one employee to the next. And many restaurants, you might not remember those days that you are like far past those days of the first SOP days, people screwing up stock counts days. But like, what is a stock, or like, what is receiving? What does it mean to receive? That is different to 10 different people. The definition of receiving is different. So, and if that's not established, then you are relying on what that guy learned in his previous job.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Have that system in place, and then train on it, and then train again, and then train some more. Totally. Refine it,
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So thank you so much for sharing these books and these learnings. And what were some of the things that were told to you that didn't, that you figured out that were kind of different? You read it in a book, or you talked to a big time restaurateur, you heard it and you tried it, and then you eventually realized that wasn't the case.
That's a great question. I don't know if I can think of anything that I've like tried to learn that didn't work out. I will say, like, kind of going back, and this is just because I was just talking about it, maybe it's top of mind, that Profit First book that I had learned. I think now, since I set up all those bank accounts with each restaurant,
you would have, maybe the first a few years you would have done it this way, but in the last a few years maybe you would have done it differently, right?
Correct, because like now we have a whole account financing team. And so the financing team like does have a way to monitor the cash flow, and they do have a system around it to where I didn't. So I needed those bank accounts to understand where our cash flow was at. However, now fast forward to today, we have like 70 something bank accounts, and it's a problem. And now we're trying to whittle them down to 2 bank accounts, pretty much, a operations and a CapEx account. Possibly we might have a drip account and maybe a tax. So maybe it would be like 4 accounts for the whole business, but it's made things exponentially hard because, when before, the bookkeeping, I was just transferring money back and forth. I was allocate the dollars. Every time there's a movement of money that has to be accounted for in our accounting books. And then now we have 14 different LLCs now. So we have 14 different companies, maybe 15, I forget. But so now it's like you've got these different entities that you're moving money in between. It's not the same entity. So it makes it exponentially harder to, move the cash from one LLC to another LLC. Even though it's in my bank account, it's easy for me to be like, boom, 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 2 clicks and I've transferred the money. But the accounting side of it has really made a problem. It's created all this manual work, I would say, which now costs us a lot of money and a time of our finance team and our bookkeepers and stuff like that. So I would say that advice was really good for
at the beginning,
for sure. But now that is kind of biting us in the butt a little bit at the scale that we're at, and I think it might not be, we could figure out a system if I was like, okay, at 10 restaurants, like we're not opening up anymore. This is the business. Like, we're next 5 years is how we're going to run it. But that's not the case. We're gearing up to open up 75 stores over the next 10 years. And so we're trying to set the foundation now of getting that set up. So when we do open up new restaurants, it's not so time consuming as far as all the back end support, the financial work, and we can set that up, pretty much plug and play. It's not like a whole burden to open up on our team.
You said you started this to scale, to make more of these. But have you ever thought that, in just a few years, you would be, there's been 8 years since that time, in 8 years, which is relatively a short period of time, yet you would reach to this level of success?
And I hate to be like some egomaniac here, but our goal was to open up 15 locations when we first started. So that was like, and I think there's a huge lesson here is like figure out what your goal is, like what are you shooting for? You can't just open up a business and not have I call it an audacious goal. You need some audacious goals. And this has been proven that the bigger your audacious goal is, the more you will become successful because you're pushing to get there. And so maybe you don't, maybe your goal is whatever you set it at. Maybe you don't get there, but you get halfway there. But that halfway point might be even more exponentially more successful than had you not set a goal at all. So that was first goal was 15. And then now that I've learned what I know, we've moved that bar
75.
and we're got it to 75. That's my new audacious goal. And I can tell you about that and kind of how I came to that number.
That's amazing. I agree with you because like the reward at the end of the day, like you did all of that super hard work. I can't even imagine like when you, over that weekend, when it aired, you had a bunch of customers, right? And after a period of not having a bunch of customers, and then you had to hire 25 people in a very short period of time to keep up with that demand, right? So to be able to do all of these things, you need to think like there is a big reward at the end of the day. And thus your actions should be bold. You should really do whatever you can do to achieve that goal, basically. And these are the famous red chairs.
Oh yeah, those those are them. They used to be orange. That's that picture was taken after they changed to red. Yeah.
By the way, I freaking like last night I was just arranging what I'm going to present, and I was looking at this food, and I was just like wanted to teleport myself over there and eat this amazing food. And for anyone in the Chicago area or visiting the Chicago area, here are the locations.
Yeah, they're not actually all coming up for some reason. There is definitely more in there. There's only 5 coming up.
There's only 5 here. Yeah,
that's okay. I know some maps they will all come up. Sometimes they don't all come up.
And the reviews are very strong, 4.5, and you have like 2,400 reviews on this location.
Yep. Yeah, that one. That's our original store, so that's had a little more time to get some reviews.
Let's take a look at the menu.
And you were talking about, how good the food looks. I think that's another huge important lesson is make sure you have a great product first, because if you don't have a great product, there's nothing to really push on,
Yeah.
So you have to perfect that first, because even if you have a great product, it does not guarantee success. All that means is that now you have a chance to be successful.
You have a starting point.
You have a chance, yeah. So before you hire a publicist, before you go through all this effort to scale a business, make sure the product is like lights out. People love it. It is a great product. And then you shout from the rooftops. Then you get all those people in the door. You really kind of hone in on your operations, but it starts with having a great product.
Well, I think like life gives people chances. And I give this example, the weirdest example in a restaurant podcast ever. Midway, 1943, US versus Japan, the war in the Pacific, and the Midway. Japan had the first shot at the American carriers. They blew it, and US Navy didn't. Life gives everyone, I think, a chance, and some people more chances. And like that's the Publicist arranged it. You did a fantastic job probably telling the story. Everyone's mouth was, watery. They came. And at that moment, you didn't blow that chance. Hundreds of people came in, like it's a very stressful situation, and you delivered. You delivered on that time. That's what I'm saying. Like you basically saw the carriers in the Pacific, US Navy, those Japanese carriers, and you blew them out of the water or into the water, more like.
been on the Midway before. It's sitting in the pier at San Diego Harbor, right over there. And I think you are really nailing that point about, you really got to, seize the moment and step up. Oh yeah. And this is what I was going to say. So what you're talking about too is trust. You build up that level where people trust. Hey, if I come in and I get a chicken sandwich, I know it's going to taste delicious. I know it's going to taste the exact taste it had last week when I got it. I know the customer service is going to be good. Like you're delivering on that promise. And to me, that is what brand is. Brand is one of the most important things for your company. Is inevitably like brand wins. And with AI coming and all these things coming, brand is going to win over everything. And trust. Do your customers trust you? And can they trust you to execute and deliver on that promise? And if you can do that every time, then you will continually grow your brand. But that to me is what brand is.
Thank you. This was really good. And how did you ensure consistency? Because one needs consistency to protect that brand, build and protect that brand. Because in 10 locations, you have 200 employees. Each one of them is representing you. Each one of them needs to do the best of the jobs to give the customer a certain experience. How do you ensure that?
So a lot of it was done through trying to solidify the SOPs we were talking about, standard operating procedures for cooking the food, how we mix the ingredients, making sure we train the teams to do it the exact same way. And originally,
how do you conduct the trainings?
So when we first had 2 locations, that was a really big thing. Everyone who told me that they had been to the other store and they had now coming to this store because it was maybe closer to their house or their work or whatever, I asked them, like, give me feedback. Is it the same as you remember? What do you notice difference? I drilled everybody and I wanted to know all that feedback from customers, what the subtle differences were. But basically it starts with our prep team who's actually making the product. We would literally go through and train them on how to do it, and it was constantly being there too and, kind of like overseeing. So we call, there's something we talk about and we did a lot back then was trust and track. So we would trust them after we trained them to do what they were supposed to do, but then we'd also track it. We'd kind of keep an eye on it. Is it different? What are they doing? This person's using, this bowl and this whisk to do it. Why is the other store using a different bowl and a different whisk? And it sounds so silly, but like they need to be the exact same bowl and they need to be the exact same whisk, so now they're doing it the same. It's getting the same consistency. What products are we using? They got to be the exact same at both stores. So I think that started there. And then now fast forward to today, last year, we must have done a training every Saturday for the entire year. Like I personally went around with our operations team and we did a different line training or customer service training with everybody every Saturday morning. So I would go to a different store. We would have tests lined up. We would go through every little detail. We always said the devil's in the details. So we went through every station on the cooking line and we said, hey, here's this. Here's the details. Like, I know this sounds stupid, but like, did you taste the French fries? No. Well, how do you know if you salted them too much or not? Like, here's how you salt them. But then there's so many like human variables that land with our food. So it's like, you need to taste the French fries to find out if they're too salty. If they are, throw them away, start over. Like, don't serve those to customers. How we season our chicken, how we mix our dip station, every step of the way. How do we even have a spoon with holes on it that scoops our coleslaw. Well, the holes are there to drain out the excess juice because the salt that goes into the coleslaw dressing, it actually extracts the juice out of the cabbage. So like, it's such a minute detail, but like if you just grab a, scoop of coleslaw and slop it onto a sandwich, it might be watery and all messy, right? But if you take the time to, just kind of press on the scoop a little bit, squeeze out some of that extra, juice, and then you put the coleslaw on, it makes a difference. So you do that with every little piece of the kitchen and all of a sudden you end up with this great product. So, but we had to go over those details over and over and over again. And I've been told that you have to tell somebody something over
7 times.
I heard 15 times that you have to tell somebody before they get it.
The number is going up. New generations are coming up.
Oh my
the
gosh,
number
well,
is going up.
Get this. This is going to blow your mind. And granted, there's an asterisk here, but my wife works with kids with autism. And so she told me that they actually have to go over behavior 1,000 times before one of their students will actually get the behavior. 1,000. Granted, that's someone who has autism, is on a spectrum, but that's insane. 1,000 times. So I started thinking about, we employ a lot of high school kids. I'm like 15 times. Maybe we have to tell them like 200 times before they get it, So we're still trying to figure that out. Don't let me think that I'm on some high horse. I find inconsistencies with our brand all the time. And I think, like, here's an example. I started having people complain that the sandwiches were tasting bland. And they were like, it's not really doing it. So I went around to all of our stores and I was checking out the seasoning. Well, our proprietary season vendor who mixes our blends for us, they were doing something weird or got some ingredient where they were clumping it together. And then all of a sudden the paprika was kind of getting through and not the other spices. So when you bit into the sandwich, you were getting this like overwhelming like paprika flavor. Well, we went to the manufacturer. We're like, hey, you guys are screwing up somewhere. Yeah. So we went through the whole process. Now they do a salinity test for us. So every time they make a batch for us, we get a report. And they added a anti-caking agent. And we actually had to go through different anti-caking agents to find one that was not so, chemically bound we found one that was pretty more natural. And that solved the problem. But so I'm listening to the customers. I'm, trying the food. We're gearing up towards doing evaluations in all the stores. So kind of like how a health inspector would show up and do like a full-on health inspection, we're going to be doing that internally. So somebody will be showing up to the stores. They're going to try all the menu. They're going to, check, I think it's like 250 boxes that they'll have to check and, make sure it's going all right. But then that'll eventually get to more consistency, hey, why are you guys wrapping this, that way? Why are you putting this in this to-go bag? Everyone else does it this way. So we're still getting there, but that's what I think needs to happen if you want to have brand consistency over so many locations. You need to do that constantly. That is something you cannot just rest on your laurels. Can't be like, we reached brand consistency. We're ready to move on. It's like, no. That is something you constantly doing. We're going to hire a trainer eventually who will go around and do trainings, 260 days a year, constant trainings.
And rightfully so, because it's a people business, right? People do manual tasks, and thus anything that can go wrong, at one point in time will go wrong, especially when you have like more and more employees, more and more stores. There is the turnover. Some people come in, other people go out. People have their lives. They have a fight or something and they come in, they might be bringing that to the work. And like, that's why these checks and balances are super important to keep everything, because at the end of the day, this is your baby. Customers come to you. And like, you are the responsible party. We love this brand and this is what's happening. Then, you have to, you ensure that, by the way, that's an amazing relation that after 10 stores, you are with the customers and you are listening to them every day and stuff. You're not in like conference rooms and, like smoking cigars and all that.
No, well, in the terms of growing the brand to 75 stores, like I cannot rest at all. There's no, and I want to do it fast. So, and we're trying to do it with all our own money too. I'm trying not to take on any investments or get too much debt. So it's tricky. Yeah. There's no days off for me. I do have a question for you though. Can I?
Yeah.
I know we're getting close on time, but all right. So have you heard of the term, price elasticity of demand?
Yeah. I studied economics.
Oh, all right. So you know all about that. So basically, like, for those listeners who don't know about it, it's essentially, and I didn't, so no judgments here, but, the more you price something, does the demand go down? So if you have, a product on the shelves, you price it at $100, no one buys it because it's too expensive. What is the sweet spot where you can charge enough and make money, make EBITDA, but, you don't lose the demand, right? So we are in a spot right now where expenses keep going up in the restaurant, cost of goods keep going up. Every little, like having a plumber. A plumber used to come to the restaurant and it'd be $300, $600 for a visit. Now it's like $1,000 minimum to get a plumber to come in to do anything. For 45 minutes, they send you a $900 bill. It's like an attorney fee. But and now we have to pay people more. We offer health insurance. I mean, just every expense
Everything
goes up, right?
And this is the beginning. If these tariffs will go through, there's going
to be more expenses coming up, right? And so I'm in the Chicago market. Everyone in Chicago is very price conscious. Also, I feel like because the cost of everything's going up, people have less money to spend nowadays, right?
That's right.
We hear a lot of complaints that our food is too expensive. And to give you an example, our sandwich is around $11,
which is not expensive.
Is not that expensive, but people think that's expensive.
Yeah.
So then they get a sandwich, they get some fries. Say lunch costs about $18 with tax, sales tax, $18.50, something like that. They think that is way too much. Someone comes in, they get for a family of 3 or 4 people. It ends up being about $100, maybe $80. They are letting us know for sure that they are never coming back and they don't care how good it is. It is too expensive. And then on one hand, we're not charging enough. Like I actually think our sandwich should cost $13.50 for it to be, more profitable, reasonably profitable, I should say. Yep. Our fries should probably be $5.50, bringing up the cost when you come get lunch or dinner to about $25 a person. We would lose so much business if we raised our prices to that. I just know the demand would, everyone would just go crazy. So I feel like we're stuck in between a rock and a hard place where I don't want to lower the quantity or the size, the portion size of our food. I don't want to lower the quality of our food, but I want to still somehow offer this like great product for a great value. So do you have any suggestions for me about how we would be able to kind of keep doing what we're doing, but somehow be able to strategically do the menu where it's not so price shocking?
Yeah. So first and foremost, some places will undercut you on the price. They will chicken out. And then like what happens in these kinds of times is like they will lower the quality, they will lower the prices, and some of them will go bankrupt. So in a way, if you want to think about the glass half full, the thing is like competition will be reduced next time this year. That's the glass half full. So, but how do we look at this from a positive standpoint, right? You need to do the same things that you have been doing. Don't shrink the portions. Don't lower the quality, because even your frying oil is beef tallow, right?
Correct.
That's something that we didn't even have time. That's like the whole thing. So GPOs, are you working with the GPO, group purchasing organization?
No, we do not.
So that is my number one go-to. So that's how I start every project. It's like magic, like a magic wand. The way that it works is there are several like Buyer's Edge and such. We work with the largest one, and how it works is they have contracts with the manufacturers, because distributor has like 13%, 14%, 15% margin on top of other kind of like shady stuff, but whatever. The big money that comes is from the manufacturer. You need to fixate the margin through a service contract with the distributor. You have 10 stores. That's a lot of stores. So like fix the margins on categories with the distributor, and then through the GPO, get to the manufacturer agreed upon rates. And this helps you in two ways. Number one, you tap into like a $30 billion purchasing power, 30 billion with a B. So even when I was running a sizable restaurant company with like 70 million in revenues, I'm nothing compared to an organization that buys $30 billion. And they have 50 purchasers who look at the commodity markets versus me. I call like, what happened with the avocados? And they are like, oh, there is drought in Mexico. I'm like, oh, okay. If there is drought in Mexico, I don't know what's happening with the avocados. I don't know the weather conditions in Mexico. I don't have the time. So GPO is great because they have these agreed upon prices. And thus it's just a turn of a button, SKUs, and you don't even have to change the SKUs. Many times in my experience, about 15% of a restaurant's same SKUs will be contracted SKUs. So, and from those you would save about 10 to 15%. So it starts with that. Then another, when I say 15, I said more like 25%. 25% of your purchases will be same SKU to same SKU, but it's gonna save you 15%. Then another 25% of the SKUs, there is a direct substitute. So if you are using, you wouldn't change this for the chicken, but say if you did like Tyson chicken versus Coop chicken, and they would have, for example, agreement with Coop chicken on the thighs and for the wings in Tyson or something like that. Then, I have saved companies up to 20% in their entire purchases. 20%. And this is just the food. Then there is the linen uniforms, about 30%, 30. Repair and maintenance contracts. National contracts. So you go to the next state over, you don't need to find these like 7-8 different specialties, from the refrigeration to the electrician to the plumber and the rest, HVAC guy and whatnot. They have national contracts. And when you complain, you don't complain as like one restaurant in Wisconsin. When you open up in Wisconsin, you complain to the guy who hires them for, $50 million on the GPO side. All the paper products like Ecolab, 20%, significant change. So that's number one. That's going to reduce your food cost. The second thing is, and this is basically doing barely nothing. You know what I mean? For the first 25%. For the second 25% substitution, you need to bring the product and test. Free samples and test whether this, paper towel is good enough, comparable to the one that you are buying. So that's GPO's number one. Second is theoretical versus actual. You run a tight ship, so you might have lesser of untapped profit from this. My experience is restaurants have 10 minimum, usually 15 to 20%. They overspend on waste, like overportioning, recipe problems, wrong product, and all that kind of stuff. So theoretical versus actual variance is about 15 to 20% in an average, even like a decently run restaurant. So if there is anything there, do you use an inventory management system?
Oh, we do. We use, just switched over to Craftable. We were using Extra Chef prior.
I use Craftable. It's a great tool, very detailed tool. The problem is SKU it's not the problem, but more like a nuisance with the, unit of measure. So when unit of measure has to be perfect. Otherwise, like cayenne pepper, something like cayenne pepper or garlic powder that you use in probably like all of these chicken recipes is going to like screw up the entire costing. Something as tiny as the unit of measurement. The accounting team, I would assign somebody on top of that. Every time a new SKU is created by probably your kitchen manager or the second guy in the kitchen, there's an area for failure in Craftable. I know this because we did this project for a customer who we did Craftable. And it takes months to clear something like garlic powder that's not super frequently bought, and we did the workarounds. The other downside of Craftable is the partial counts. We had to create workarounds on partial counts, which is like weekly for the weekly counts. So theoretical versus actual is the second place that can be tapped in. Third is the labor cost. And over there, I'm not talking about the general cutting it like 20% from the top, but more like finding the internal inconsistencies. Like, for example, you use Toast. If I'm not mistaken, I saw it on the delivery platform.
Use Toast. Yep.
Like Sling, their scheduling and payroll system, Sling has a subscription for payroll, basically sales forecasting / payroll forecasting tool embedded, basically in the higher tier subscription. What I've seen is like schedules are rolled forward. they many times, and they don't necessarily follow the sales forecast. And like even as simple as the time, like the schedule for the opening and closing, the inconsistency there. Say you make the same sale Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. For no good reason, can have 8 hours for opening on Monday, 12 hours on Tuesday, 9 hours on a Wednesday. So if one restaurant can open with 8 hours on Monday, no change coming into Tuesday, why 12? Somebody made it 12. There was something at 12 5 months ago. And it was just rolled forward, just like military.
Mm-hmm.
These are basically low-hanging fruits. I'm not even talking about like what's gonna be the schedule for Friday evening, those risky areas. I'm talking about like low-hanging fruits, like same SKU to same SKU GPO. Internal inconsistency in the schedule. Those are low. So that way you build up a buffer to protect yourself against this. Because right now, again, like some companies are gonna undercut and they will go out of business in the next year. Nobody can withstand.
Mm-hmm.
The profitability was already like 5% for the entire industry. So if tariffs hit, like everybody will be in the red. But other than that, specials would be something, right? Doubling down on marketing. There's always a good time for marketing, telling your story about this, but at the same time acknowledging that everybody is going to be hurt, and restaurant expenditure is a discretionary spending. So maybe getting into the non-discretionary part could be a thing, maybe going for like business catering and things in that nature, which I'm not sure if businesses will have the discretionary funds to spend, but maybe adding channels could help. I believe loyalty programs. Toast is a decent loyalty program without you doing too much. And I know you guys have a loyalty program. Mm-hmm. Utilizing that and reminding people that you exist, that reach out to them, send value to them, basically, like whether this is knowledge, information, a sexy video. And I know you are a super creative guy, because there was a break-in, I think in the third break-in in the location, you made a very funny video, right?
Yeah, we took advantage of that one.
So that's amazing creativity. You got a negative situation, turn it into positive. That's why the marketing has to be there, continuously reaching out to them, emails, text messages, video, sending them videos, fun.
So you think instead of raising prices, you think just kind of keep chipping away at some of our cost of goods, our labor, some of the expenses to help, justify the prices and still make it profitable where it is. I don't want to raise prices, literally. Especially
as long as we can expand upon, like price, like bundle pricing or price anchoring, like all of these, like psychological things that, bump it up to like 95 sensors. Like, yes, there is all of that. But at the end of the day, that's not going to, like, if this tariff thing extends, if the economy goes into recession, no amount of price anchoring or maybe bundling can help, creating bundles for people, family meal nights or something like that. That can be profitable. But I think if you can lower your cost of goods, and think about this in the glass half full way, some people are going to be out of business. And after this, whatever this is, whether this is a recession or not, whatever when we come out from this, you'll be stronger than ever, because you will lower your cost of goods sold in a way that doesn't affect the customers, right? Sure. You are just spending less for the same, maybe even better quality. Who knows?
No, sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, literally.
Second generation businesses.
I know. Yeah.
Hoorah.
We always joke with our financial director, because it is so tricky to be, profitable in the restaurant business. The margins are so thin everywhere. And so it is, we're always like, how do all these other restaurants do it? We know how difficult it is. So it's like, gosh, and we're pretty savvy. So it's like, wow, how are these other restaurants pulling it off?
I just wrote this piece, and I know I'm basically, let me show you this. I wrote this article yesterday just about the same thing.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think, there is going to be a lot of restaurants, going out of business. I mean, the property tax alone, at least in the Chicago market, I'm sure it's happening other places. Like, it is going up every year. And so then what's happening? Rents are going up. And again, it's like, there's this price elasticity. So you gotta, if you don't have good operations, like there's no way. We had at one point our rent was at 6% across the board. Now it's closer to 8%. And we've been paying higher rents at the new locations. So is your restaurant a lemon or a peach? One of the things that I've learned about burgers, especially the new smash burgers, are pretty popular. So if you have 2 patties, like a double cheeseburger, right? You could almost have 1.5 ounces of meat for your first patty, 1.5 ounces of meat for your second patty. So let's say your burger is 3 to 4 ounces of protein, right? The meat, which is probably the most expensive thing in your burger. The chicken sandwiches, we use a natural chicken fall breast. They're 7 ounces. That's almost half a pound of protein. So
and goes through a million different things, because you guys inspect 50,000 pieces, right?
Oh yeah.
Compared to like all burger places, get the patty and put on the grill, and you go through a million different steps before you can even do nothing.
Yeah, and then each chicken breast is different. We don't form it into, it's not ground meat. You form into a chicken breast. It's like the chicken breast is the chicken breast, So, it has some challenges in that compared to like doing a burger, because you can make a burger perfect, the same exact every time. I can't make you a chicken sandwich the exact same, because that chicken breast changes with everyone.
Maybe that could be it then. Like grab your own. Everyone is different, and that could be like a marketing campaign. Wouldn't it be?
Just like us, we're all different.
Yeah, it's like the lottery. If you don't get it, you won't be winning it. And if you don't get your chickens, and it's like river is never the same. You are not going into the same river twice or something.
Yeah, there's something there. I like that.
Same thing with chicken sandwich. Because of these like low quality places that sell like low quality food at a discounted price, super low margins, they are barely like scraping by. Because of them, customers are confused.
They're confused.
Not all of them can make the distinguishment between what is a great quality food and whatnot. I can tell you this, we serve the freaking highest grade, like literally the best prime steak in the entire country. This like prime is like 1%. This is basically 1% of that 1%. This my third quality meat is prime, by the way. I'm serving the best prime in the entire country, and that's my third quality meat. And I read the reviews, and the guy says no different from Morton's. That's how some people are. Maybe he was upset about something, whatever. His review is his review. But literally, many people can't distinguish the difference, and thus a lot of these people will get like almost finished product from Cisco and serve it to the customer, is screwing us good operators over. That's why I don't feel super terrible that some of them will not survive whatever we are gonna go through.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I would rather pay a little extra for better quality than, cheap out on something that's going to be, you're putting it inside your body. So I feel like it's like, how intimate does it get? It's pretty intimate. I always go back to the whole wine in America. There's only a certain amount of people that buy the $20, $30 bottle of wine. I think it's around 10% of the people. So 90% of people buy the cheap $12 bottle of wine. And I think that's, somewhat of a problem, because they don't know the difference between, that $12 bottle of wine and the $30 bottle of wine. And there is a big difference there, So yeah, I think you're right. It's a challenge. And if they go out of business, I'm with you. You shouldn't have lowered your quality and lowered your price so much that, you confused everybody.
I agree with you. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I just think, we're all in this together. All ships rise with the tide. Anyone could reach out to me, joe@frythecoop.com, or DM us on Instagram. We're happy to help whatever we can. We're learning every day. I'm learning, the more I learn, the less I feel like I know. So I'm sure in the next 5 restaurants, I'll learn even more. So hit me up, and thank you for having me on. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's been a super pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to The Bottom Line. If you found value in today's conversation, make sure you follow, share, and leave a review. Have a question or need a professional's opinion? Then be sure you reach out using the links in the show notes below. New episodes come out every other week, and until then, we will see you next time.